Hey there, folks! In this video, I want to share a very important story with you. In fact, I think this is the most important video I've made for this channel. I've been working on and researching this case since at least May of 2024. It took a long time because my priorities are not always about getting a video released as soon as possible. You'll see what I mean a bit later. This story is about a woman named Theresa Jones who lived in Bernice, Louisiana, and she went missing in 2023. Since that occurred, Teresa's story has taken many twists and turns that the public is largely unaware of. There is also a seemingly paranormal element to what took place here. Some things appear to have happened that I can't fully explain, but that will be for you to judge in the end. Behind the scenes of all of this, Teresa's family has been fighting a near constant battle to get answers to the many questions that they have. I'm grateful that they've trusted me with their story so that I could help in whatever way I'm able. If there is one video on this channel that I would want everyone to watch until the end, it would be this one. I realize it is long, but there are many details in this case, and I think it's important to convey everything. I believe it is also important that we keep Teresa's story alive as best we can, so that we may one day see a proper conclusion to her case. What has happened here is almost like something you would see in a movie, but these are all real people and real events, so I want to make sure that we do Teresa justice. In order to do that, we're going to be using reports from the investigating authorities, the Union Parish Sheriff's Office, or UPSO. We will use witness testimony from those who had to live through this. We'll use the investigation conducted by Teresa's daughter, Ashley, who really dug deep on this, recording interviews with people, asking questions, taking pictures. It's unlike anything I've ever seen from a family member, and she did a brilliant job. And we will also use recent forensic reports I've requested that dive deeper into what is happening here. And I want to thank John Oliveira at Applied Forensic Solutions for his assistance with this case, but we'll get into that a bit later as well. The details of this case, however small, are often important. I would encourage everyone to pay close attention and see if you can come to a conclusion for yourself. First, I want to go back to the very beginning of this story and the day that Teresa disappeared. Everything begins near the small town of Bernice in northern Louisiana. Theresa Dawn Jones, who was 56 years old, lived far outside of town in a neighborhood that hugs the shore of Lake D'Arbonne. This area is fairly rural, with dense foliage and lush pine forests. Teresa lived in a house on Stevenson Road with her boyfriend, Robert. The two had been in a relationship for about 3 years. Robert worked as an electrician, and his job would often call on him to leave town for days at a time. At this point in her life, Teresa already had 3 adult children from past relationships. They are Ashley, Brittany, and Vinny. Her daughter Ashley still lived relatively nearby in Louisiana, but the other 2, Brittany and Vinny, lived out of state in Oklahoma. Beyond her immediate children, Teresa had numerous grandchildren for whom she cared deeply. Teresa had a good sense of humor, she was kind, honest, and friendly. But like pretty much everyone else in this world, Teresa had lived a life of ups and downs. There was a time she had battled addiction to cocaine and heroin, but by 2023 she had been clean from both for about 2 decades. She was always open with her family about her struggles with addiction. She never hid any of it, because she didn't want to see any of her children or grandchildren fall victim to those same demons. On the evening of February 2nd, 2023, Teresa's boyfriend came home from a work trip to find that the normally spotless and clean house had been totally destroyed. Whole rooms had been torn apart, items had been flung everywhere, and cabinet doors were hung open. In some rooms, clothing and objects were piled up to an extent that nobody could enter. Teresa was nowhere to be found. Upon discovering the house in this state, Robert made a couple of phone calls. First, he called Teresa's daughter, Ashley, a phlebotomist who was preparing to work a night shift. Robert asked if Teresa was with her, a question which baffled Ashley. She had not physically seen her mother since Christmas and had last spoken to her on the phone around mid-January. Robert explained that Teresa was not at home, and he did not know where she was. The phone call ended with Ashley being confused as to what was happening. The next call that Robert made was to the Union Parish Sheriff's Office around 7:48 p.m., and he informed them that he wished to make a missing persons report. A Deputy Sepulvado and a Sergeant Satterwhite would arrive on scene at the house around 10 minutes later at 8 p.m. Robert explained that he had been working out of town in Lake Charles recently and could only come home on weekends. He said that when he arrived at the house, Teresa was nowhere to be found and the interior was a mess. Robert said that nothing like this had ever happened before. When he entered the home, Robert found Teresa's wallet with all her ID and cards, and her car keys were in the living room. Robert had been repeatedly calling Teresa's phone, and the deputies stated that in their report they could hear a ringing coming from the bedroom in the house. Both Sepulvado and Satterwhite assisted in searching for the phone, which was found lying under the bed. Robert then advised the men that during the night of February 1st, around 7:25 p.m., Teresa had called him multiple times, acting irate and accusing him of sleeping with the neighbor. He said that he had already gone over to the neighbors to ask if they had seen Teresa, and the neighbor told him that Teresa had called to ask if they knew how to turn off the camera system inside the home. The neighbor went over to Teresa's to assist her, but said that Teresa would not let them in the house when they got there. Robert said that Teresa was currently on new medication for the past few weeks, which also coincided with changes in her behavior. He said that the past few times he would come home, Teresa would not come out of the guest room and would barely speak to him. Sergeant Satterwhite and Deputy Sepulvado then searched the residence and outlying property in an attempt to find Teresa. While looking at Teresa's phone, one of them noticed that there was a notification which led to a message and call log through Facebook Messenger with Teresa's brother, Corey. The messages were time-stamped for the morning of February 2nd. The sergeant had someone go out to Corey's residence for a welfare check, but Teresa was not there, and Corey said that he had not communicated with her for several weeks. Next, the investigators reviewed the security cameras set up at the house and found that the last time Teresa was seen on camera was around 1 a.m. on February 2nd, wearing pink pajamas outside on the front porch. Afterwards, both investigators left for the evening with plans to continue searching during daylight hours. Later that evening, Teresa's daughter, Ashley, showed up at the property along with her aunt. The phone call she received from Robert earlier had led her to skip work to try and figure out what was happening. Since Ashley was the only child of Teresa's that lived close enough to physically do anything, a lot of responsibility fell on her shoulders. Her siblings, Vinny and Brittany, could only wait to hear updates on the situation unfolding in Louisiana. When Ashley arrived at the house, Robert told her that he had just filed a missing persons report for Teresa, and it was then that the reality of the situation finally set in. Ashley arrived at the Union Parish Sheriff's Office around 1:20 a.m. on what was now Friday, February 3rd. The investigators were just finishing the creation of Teresa's missing persons poster when she arrived. Ashley was able to supply deputies with plenty of additional details about her mother. In their report, it stated that Ashley told them that she had recently learned her mother had relapsed on meth after almost 20 years clean and was frequently using marijuana. She said that her mother also suffered from mental illness that required medication, but Teresa was refusing to take the medication as she was supposed to. Ashley told deputies that she had her aunt go and check Corey's house to see if her mother was there. During this time, she was on the phone with her aunt, and she could hear Corey acting irate, stating that he had not seen Teresa and that he didn't have to answer any questions. Lastly, Ashley informed the investigators that she planned to get Teresa's cell phone records from Verizon to see if they could assist in locating her. Now, this is probably as good a time as any to mention that the things that are written in the UPSO report are not always corroborated by Ashley herself. For example, let's hear what Ashley has to say about the detective's writing that she told them that Teresa had relapsed on meth.
No, I didn't. I never told anyone that my mom was using drugs. I did not tell anyone that. I didn't know at the time. I knew that my mother used marijuana. I knew that my mother drank wine. I did not know that my mother used meth in any kind of way. My mother had been clean off of drugs for over 20 years, like 25 plus years. She used to use drugs, and cocaine and heroin were her drugs of choice, never meth. And she was an IV drug user all those years ago. She actually blew a vein that ran to her heart. Something happened. I don't know. I was a kid. She had an artificial vein in her left arm, I believe it was, that ran to her heart. She had to have a surgery for that. And then after that, she quit doing drugs, and she vowed to never do them again. Because she was very open with her addiction with us. She never wanted her kids or grandkids to be on drugs, so she was very open with us. And so I would ask a lot of questions. I wanted to know. And she said she could never shoot herself up. She always had to have someone else do it. She just couldn't do it.
As the sun rose on February 3rd, the UPSO assigned a Captain Mike Bryan to Teresa's case for further investigation. Once he was caught up with all the details, Captain Bryan drove out to Teresa's house on Stevenson Road, where he met up with Robert, Ashley, and Ashley's daughter, Miranda. Ashley told him that she had just made contact with Teresa's neighbor, the one that Teresa had accused Robert of having an affair with. This woman's name was Jeannie. Ashley recorded the conversation she had with Jeannie so that she could present it to Captain Bryan, and we have a copy as well. It is a long conversation, so I will only play portions of it.
The last time I talked to her was probably, it's been about 3 days ago. Was the last time I talked to her, and she wasn't in good shape then. And
can you tell me what you mean by that?
She was doing dope. And she was having a freak out,
okay,
and I was trying to calm her down.
Be more specific when you say dope.
She was on meth. I have seen her use it IV, and I've seen her snort it. I don't know if that's what she's still doing. I thought that she had went to sleep, and that's why I hadn't heard from her in a few days. So I didn't know any of this stuff was going on until Robert came up last night. The last time I talked to her, she was just freaking out and saying that her tongue was all tore up and somebody had been in her house and breaking into the house, and I knew that probably was not true, that she was just, it was one of the side effects from her not sleeping and stuff.
So she was manic.
I tried,
right?
Yeah, I thought that she was, because I told her, I said, Teresa, you need to go in there and go to sleep and get you something to drink, and I meant alcohol to calm her down. Just go in there and drink something and pass out. I said, you're not doing good. So I did, that's what I thought she did. I haven't heard from her since then.
Were you aware that she thought that you were having an affair with Robert?
No. Are you kidding? Oh my Lord. I don't know why in the world she would think that.
Yeah, that's she did. She had claimed that to not only me, but her sister, and even the night that she had come up missing, she had called Robert and like went kind of manic on him, saying that he was having an affair with you, and he tried to FaceTime her to show her that he was in Lake Charles at his camper, that no one was there.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that he said that, but he didn't say that she said it was me. He just said that she said that he was having an affair, and he tried to. I mean, my fiance is here. She knows that. Oh Lord.
Okay.
No.
After hearing the conversation, Captain Bryan had a certified tracking dog brought in to search the general area around Robert's property, with a goal to determine Teresa's path of travel. Using a scent article from the house, the dog began tracking away from the residence and following the roadway towards the turn to Stevenson Road. Upon reaching the intersection, the dog then turned to the right and started going towards Jeannie's residence. The dog passed the house and went up to a shipping container that was being used for storage. It is unclear in the report whose property the shipping container was on. The door to the shipping container was open as if someone had recently entered it, so it was checked to see if Teresa was in there, but nothing was found. The dog then resumed its trail going back towards the intersection with Stevenson Road, passing it and continuing on. The dog eventually led investigators to Highway 2 West. It's unclear from the report if the dog followed the road the entire time or not, but upon reaching the highway, the tracking dog turned and began heading east for a short distance, eventually alerting on a small hand towel or rag on the ground, indicating that this rag had been touched by Teresa at some point. So far, I have seen no photographs of this dish towel. After this point, the tracking dog was unable to pick up any additional trails. At the time, all indications were that Teresa possibly entered a vehicle on Highway 2 and was driven away. In order to be thorough, the dog was used to scent the north side of the highway and make sure that Teresa didn't simply walk across the road. No scent was picked up on that side of the road. While all this was happening, Robert penned a note to Teresa, and he left it sitting on a table on his front porch. The hope was that Teresa might see it if she were to come near the house. The note reads, "Hey baby, I really need you to come home. You are not in any kind of trouble. Everyone just wants to know if you're okay. Vinny is even talking about coming down to help find you. Me, Ashley, and Marissa have been cleaning house. You need to come home. We all love you very much. I need you here with me. Your kids and family are really upset and worried. I have never cheated on you and never will with other person or on drugs. I will forgive you. Please come home. I try to do everything I can to make you happy. I should finish this job by the end of the month and will tell Calvin that I will not take any more jobs out of town. I will do this for you, but I need you to come home. You are very loved by me and all of your and my family. Everyone is very worried about you. Please come home. Trigger need you too. Love, Robert." Right from the start, Ashley had been posting to social media about her mom's disappearance, and she was already receiving a lot of tips. One of these came from a woman named Barbara Sue who lived only a short distance away from Teresa on Henry Smith Road. Barbara Sue apparently said that she believed Teresa had knocked on her door and was holding a gas can and said something about having run out of gas. The woman then tried to force her way inside before being completely turned away. This tip was never fully verified, but here is the audio of what was relayed to Ashley.
She said that the lady had come to her door knocking and said had a gas can, and she was dressed. And she said that she ran out of gas, and she told her she didn't have no gas. She said she had never seen the woman before. So she said, she told her she was sorry. And so, she went to close the door, and the lady tried to get into her house. And so she got her out and closed the door. And then she said she saw the picture and realized it was the same lady, and she said she felt so bad after. And she said she didn't know what was going on, but she said these days, you don't just let strangers try to get into your house.
That's right.
Beyond this, Ashley was contacted by a woman named Jenny who reported seeing two people in pajamas walking on Highway 2 on Wednesday, February 1st, while carrying gas cans. She said that the color of the pajamas was either red or pink, and that they were walking from Bernice towards Farmerville around 1 to 2 p.m. Jenny believed that this may have been Teresa walking with an unknown female companion. When shown a photograph of the neighbor, Jeannie, she said that it might have been her that Teresa was walking with, but she couldn't be sure. At this point, the search for Teresa was essentially paused due to a lack of leads. In the UPSO report, they say that there was no other known locations to search for Teresa, and because she left her phone at the house, that was not a valid option to assist in the search. However, an additional odd incident was reported later on this day. Shannon Bryan, the wife of the lead detective on this case, Mike Bryan, reported a sighting possibly related to Teresa. Shannon worked in West Monroe, and she was with a coworker while driving in the parking lot of a Circle K store located on Bridge Street. While there, she noticed a dark-colored SUV with Arkansas plates that had a bunch of clothing falling out of the door or window and onto the pavement. She then observed a white female exit the vehicle and attempt to put the items back into the car. Shannon stated that she and her coworker stopped their car, exited, and assisted the female with putting the clothing items back into the SUV. While doing this, she noticed a tall white male with long hair sitting in the vehicle. During this time, he never exited or offered to assist them. Because of this, Shannon never got a good description of what this man looked like. Shortly after this incident, Shannon saw the missing persons flyer for Theresa Jones on social media and realized that it was Teresa that she had helped in the Circle K parking lot. After learning this new information from his wife, Captain Bryan reports that he drove out to the Circle K to see if they had any cameras which may have captured the event. Upon doing this, he noticed that there were no surveillance cameras in the area of the parking lot where Shannon saw Teresa. When he checked inside the store, he learned that Teresa never entered or walked to the front of the store where she could be seen with cameras in that area. He checked all the surrounding businesses for any other surveillance systems, but he found none that pointed in the direction he needed. Once Ashley got wind of this sighting, she decided to look into it herself.
I went there, I followed up behind what he told me, and I spoke with a manager, and then she spoke with the night manager, called and woke them up, and no deputies have been there to review any type of footage. And then so I asked, but I couldn't. I wasn't allowed, and I understand that.
If there ever was footage of Teresa at this Circle K, we will probably never know. Whatever did exist has probably long since been deleted, as few businesses retain years-old surveillance. Either way, this rather important sighting appears to have not been followed up on to its proper conclusion. The investigation into Teresa's disappearance had hit a dead end at this point.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kyla Scott. Stephen is on assignment. Our top story tonight, search efforts continue for a missing woman from Bernice. Today marks 2 days since she disappeared. NBC 10's Valerie Maravi spoke to her daughter and joins us in the studio with updates.
The story of Teresa's disappearance hit the local news in an effort to make the public aware and also generate some tips. The report gave a very basic overview of what had occurred and also featured an interview with Ashley, who asked anyone with information to contact authorities immediately. The local sheriff, Dusty Gates, was also interviewed very briefly about the possibility of foul play. At the time, there was some evidence to suggest that Teresa's brother, Corey, was the last person to see her.
We have been in contact with her brother, but have not gathered a whole lot of information at this time. But at this point in time, we don't suspect any foul play.
Since the moment that she learned her mother was missing, Ashley had been running her own investigation. She did this with the help of other family members, including her sister Brittany. By Saturday, February 4th, Ashley was receiving numerous tips from people who thought they might have seen Teresa around the time of her disappearance. Ashley was also speaking to anyone who was close to Teresa and recording those conversations. She recorded herself giving updates on the progress she was making and the things that she had learned. She was out knocking on doors, making and posting flyers around the parish, taping them to windows, telephone poles, and gas pumps. She was stopping anyone she saw in the area and asking if they had seen her mom. She was doing what every great investigator does and gathering evidence to try and solve a mystery. This is the very tried and true, traditional way of doing things. It's what I do in every video I make. But it doesn't always yield the results you want or need, and that was the case here as well. While Ashley was busy with her work on the ground, her sister Brittany had a different idea on how to help with the investigation. The psychic medium, Carolyn Clapper.
Look, I was raised very Southern Baptist, okay? That was not allowed. You don't believe in that. If you believe in that, you're going to hell. My mom's dad was full-fledged Pentecost, and that was a no-no. So that was a psychic never even entered my mind, never crossed my mind. I'm not saying that if a psychic had that I wouldn't had in that moment, because it was very scary. I think that you would do anything to find a family member. But my sister, on the other hand,
I added her to Facebook long while back because I seen that she helps with missing person cases, and I know that she was gifted. At that time, I was just like, okay, our mom always told us that we do not reach out to anybody that communicates with the dead. So in my mind, my mom's not dead, she's missing. And I noticed she helped previously with missing person cases. And I said, if the police can't find her, if nobody's like, what's the first thing you jump on? Somebody that has these gifted abilities. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, she's not dead. She's just a missing person. So I'm not breaking anything that my mom told me growing up that's wrong in my mom's faith, So I was like, well, she can find my mom. She's a missing person. Let's do it.
Carolyn Clapper is a psychic medium who lives in Wisconsin, basically on the other side of the country. Brittany had followed Carolyn's work on Facebook, but the two had never actually spoken, and Ashley had no idea that she existed at all. If you're anything like me, then you might be inherently skeptical of proclaimed psychic powers. Frankly, in my opinion, I think 99% of psychics are frauds, people with mental illness, or those who have just convinced themselves they have special powers. I think this way because I have never actually seen a psychic that I could confidently say was legitimate. But I always leave that last percentage point open because you just never completely know. Like many mediums, Carolyn makes a living by charging people for readings, but there is an important distinction that should be made. There have been at least a few purported instances where Carolyn may have located missing people, and there are a lot of individuals who are prepared to speak to the legitimacy of Carolyn's results and her abilities. Additionally, it is my understanding after speaking with her and doing some research that she typically does not charge families of missing people who are just desperate to find their loved ones. And so far, I have found nothing that would indicate she is being deceptive with that claim. If someone comes to a psychic and wants them to find their missing car keys, I got no problem with a psychic charging them money for that service. Even if I don't believe in it, it's got nothing to do with me if someone wants to spend their hard-earned money that way. That's their right. But I've always taken a different stance when it comes to the grieving, or desperate people searching for lost family members. If I had the power to psychically help families in that way, I know I would have the desire to do so free of charge, especially if I could save someone's life. And it appears that Carolyn is much the same way. So I do appreciate the fact that she is not trying to take advantage of those who are desperate. Now that we have a better understanding of who Carolyn is, let's return to Ashley's story and the search for Teresa. Teresa's youngest daughter, Brittany, had sent a Facebook message to Carolyn asking for help on February 3rd. Carolyn, being totally booked up at the time, gave a response that indicated she might not be able to assist immediately, but she did give Brittany her phone number.
So I did reach out to Carolyn. She didn't quite get back to me right away. I think it was the next day or 2 days later. I'm not sure. I'll need to look back at the messages. But I sent her pictures of my mom, and she said, like, she's going to stop me right there. Like, she doesn't need any information about my mom. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't care, how normal psychics, however they say, I don't need this, just trying to show proof of their abilities. I don't care about none of that. You're the real deal and you can find my mom. This is the information. I don't, whatever. Find her. That's all I care about.
As Saturday turned into Sunday, February the 5th, there were still no new leads. Things had stagnated. However, Ashley decided to return to her mother's house with her best friend in hopes of viewing some security footage. I'm going to let Ashley pick up the story from here, and you will get a play-by-play of how things unfolded. You will also hear what happened during a psychic reading. This is going to be a fairly lengthy segment of this video, but I thought it best to include as much of the psychic reading narrative as possible. For legal and ethical purposes, certain names, people, and details are going to be kept very vague. And also, keep in mind that the sheriff's investigation that we just covered was not public knowledge. In fact, much of that stuff we just covered is still not public knowledge. Ashley has vouched for Carolyn's authenticity to me many times, and has told me that the things Carolyn knew, she had no possible way of knowing, including what was going to happen with the future of the investigation and Teresa's disappearance. But I'll let Ashley explain how all of this started.
And then that Sunday, me and my best friend went out there because there was some camera footage that we wanted to see. And while we were there, we'll just skip through it really quick. We stayed there for a few hours. It fell night, and we decided that we were just going to call it a night and go home. We would be back the next day, that Monday. But on the way home, I told my friend, I was like, her mom's dog kept barking towards these woods in front of her house. And I was like, there is something. Like, I just feel like we need to go in these woods. Like, and I want to do it tonight. So she calls her husband, and he's like, okay, that's fine. I'll get some flashlights and spotlights, but I want you guys to know, like, this is dangerous. Like, we don't know whose property that is, property lines. And we all live in the country. So, like, if we hear anything, I live down a dead end. If someone comes down here, like, we're going outside with our gun, just in self-defense, just in case. So that made a lot of sense that it was unsafe to go back out there that night. So we drive to my house. When I get there, I had already told my daughter, I was like, I'm headed home, be ready, because when I get there, we're going back. She was sitting in her Tahoe waiting on me. And when I get in the car with her, she's like, look, I'm on the phone with Aunt Brittany, who is my little sister. And she's like, she wants to run something by you. I don't think you're going to be in agreement, but please just listen. And I'm like, okay. And she says, look, sis, I follow this lady, Carolyn Clapper, on Facebook. She finds missing people. Like, I really think she's legit. She said, I'm going to call her. She said, at this point, what do we have to lose? Maybe we can gain. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I'm just going to sit here and be quiet. I'm not saying nothing. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to, like, mute myself.
But I told my big sister about it, Ashley, and knowing how we were raised, we don't seek this kind of stuff out. So my sister was like, you shouldn't have done that. It goes against what we were raised upon. Why would you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, look, mom's missing. It's not like we're talking to the dead. I'm trying to find ways around that. What we grew up on, just trying to say she's just missing, and she helps with missing persons cases. So let's just try. It's not going to hurt, whatever. My sister, I put my sister on three-way.
So she calls at, like, it was 10:45, 48, something like that at night. And Carolyn answered.
She ended up contacting me on the 5th, on February 5th. Okay. And so I had just done, I just finished like a 2.5-hour medical reading. Sometimes they go really long because some people have a lot going on in their bodies that I have to sift through, and it's kind of a long process. But, so I had just gotten done with a really long reading, and I was really drained. And my phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hadn't provided her number to me. She just, it was just an unknown number, 10:45 at night approximately. And I'm like, I had a migraine starting. And I just thought, man, I shouldn't answer this because I have a migraine started and I don't know who it is. And I don't know why, but something pulled me to pick up the phone anyway. So I answered the phone, and it was Brittany. And she's like, ma'am, I mean, Sarah was so sweet. And she calls me ma'am. And she's like, ma'am, this is Brittany. We spoke over, Facebook Messenger. My mother's missing. Can you please help me find her?
She just kind of immediately went into a reading. I mean, and she was like, telling Brittany to take notes. I just sat over there quiet.
Carolyn was relaying all this information about my mom. And I mean, like to the T. I mean, stuff I didn't even know, but my sister could confirm. And mind you, she's on three-way, so she's not talking. Like, I'm like, it's just me and Carolyn going in this call. My sister's just gonna be listening. I'm not even gonna say nothing to Carolyn.
She just started saying, oh my goodness, she was giving great details that I later ran into Monday morning. But at the time, I'm just listening.
And I mean, she's saying stuff to a T that only my sister would know. And it freaks my sister out.
If you want me to be honest, I was sitting over there quietly in my head saying, I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus. I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus. Like, I am so scared, like, I'm going to go to hell, She just starts going into this reading. And the first person, she sees mom. She starts describing mom. She's like, she's got 4 children. And we're like, there's only 3 of us. It wasn't later on until we figured out the 4th kid, so me and my brother and sister have the same mother, but different dads. And when my mother and their dad divorced, he remarried and had another daughter. So that's the 4th kid. Even though it's not hers, she loved Gracie like hers, and we were just all her kids, So she's like, she has a son, his name starts with a V. She described our mom's hair, beautiful red hair, and her laughter and how beautiful she was. And then she's like, okay, who is Richard? And my sister's like, that's my dad. And she was like, does he have a blue van? And she was like, he did, but he's dead. She was like, by suicide. And Brittany said, yes. And I'm like slapping my daughter, I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is the devil's work, and I'm on mute, so nobody can hear me. And my daughter's like, shh, just listen. And then Richie, he's like, hey, he told Carolyn, I'm going to help you find Teresa. He's like, I really want to talk to my kids. I have so much I want to say to them. And Carolyn's like, okay, we'll come back to that. Will you please just help me find Teresa? And he said, yes. And so he did. Like, I don't know if he connected her with mom. I don't really know exactly how all that works. But so my mom comes into the reading. And at this time, I'm starting to feel like, okay, if my mom is coming into this reading, as they call it, she's got to be dead. Because how is the living going to come through? That's just my way of thinking. But I just kept my mouth shut. I kept that strictly to myself.
The way that she showed up to me was she showed me herself in a scene, okay? So she showed me herself in the backyard. It was her backyard. Like, I had a knowing that it was her backyard. There was a bonfire. There was 5, 6 people there, whatever. And she's sitting in one of those fold out lawn chairs. She's just sitting there. I'm seeing the scene. There's a man standing next to her that I assume is her partner. Okay. Because the people around her are like, girl, you're too good for him. And they were joking about it. And she's like, oh, come on, and then he's like, yeah, thanks a lot. What am I, chopped liver, kind of thing. And they're kind of character building. And they're in the background, I get the knowing that she was always really beautiful. And that, a lot of people when she was younger, they thought that she would be an actress or a model or whatever. And, she kind of took pride in that, but she didn't lean into it, So anyways, she starts telling me things out there that are just like unique to her, such as what I've explained. Then she goes, follow me, right? So I'm kind of, it's like she knows that I'm there. It's kind of like I'm there with her. It's very interesting. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like I'm there and I'm just listening and just kind of talking to me. And then she goes, follow me. And I start to follow her as she goes towards the back door of a home. And she says, it's a trailer. She's like, it's a trailer home. She goes, but I'm not like trailer trash. She goes, I'm very OCD. She's like, I keep a very tidy house. Like I never, like my stuff is always in order. You know, she's like, I'm not trailer trash. I just have a trailer. And I'm like, I'm not judging. I'm telling her back telepathically, I'm not judging you. Like there's no judgment here. I don't care what kind of home you have or if you don't have one at all. And she's like, no, I'm just letting you know. So she was like really OCD and she kept a clean house. She also said that she had kind of manic episodes sometimes. Like she had, I don't know if it was bipolarism or something, but she had manic episodes. And so she said that she was on different medications. She showed me 5 medications that she was on. And she showed me that a couple of those medications had been changed 3 months ago. So very specific about the dates when she was prescribed new medications. So then I go in through the door with her. I can see the way that her house looks from the back. I go in through the door and I start seeing the room. I now am in a position where I shift positions from like her knowing I'm there, her speaking directly to me being in the home, kind of like a fly on the wall, looking at what's happening. I'm part of a scene. Okay. I've got this bird's eye view or this fly view or whatever in the room. And I can see that I can see where she's set her items, like her belongings, like her purse and her keys and her phone. And I see that there's a table, this little coffee table, right? And then there's, you know, she has her purse and everything in the kitchen. Then I see a bottle of liquor. And I know that she had been drinking, right? And I know that this isn't during like the scene that I was just in anymore. Like I was just gathering her personality out there, but now we're isolated. Nobody else is around. And she picks up her phone and I ask her through my head. I know it's a weird thing, but telepathy is a whole other language that most people don't understand. Okay. So I'm able to ask questions and then I get responses back. And they make sense. And then those responses are generally evidential, which is why I coined the term evidential medium when I took on the title mediumship years ago, okay? To set myself apart from other people. Because I demand that they bring through a lot of evidence, right? So I don't sound crazy. That I wouldn't do this if I didn't have a lot of evidence to provide to people. I just wouldn't. I see her on her phone, right? And I'm like, trying to just listen at first, like, who are you talking to, right? The person that she's speaking with is a man that she lives with, okay? So the person that she lives with, she's on the phone with. And this individual is clearly pissing her off. She's really upset. She says, are you really working or are you fucking that whore? And it's like, well, clearly things aren't good there in that, you know, in that arena. Then I have a knowing of what this person does for a living. So I see that he drives and repairs things. He has like a truck and, you know, things on the back of his truck for repairing like electronics, like not electronics, but like he's an electrical person. I don't know. He does some kind of like electrical repairs. And so I'm telling all this to Brittany, and Brittany's like, you'll have to ask my sister, because my sister like knows more about that. Like she lives closer to mom. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm thinking, okay, well, why don't we get your sister on the phone? You know, if that's the case, like, I think that'd be a really good idea. Like bring your sister into this call right now. Well, then I see her sister, of whom I don't have a name for at this point. I didn't get her name. I just see a sister who's like, I can see what Brittany looks like and she's got dark hair and stuff. I can see them. And then I see another girl with like blonder hair, red hair, like a reddish blonde hair. And she's sitting on a phone and she's listening to the conversation, listening to the reading that I'm giving to Brittany. And I'm shown that she I'm just showing her phone and I'm getting the mute button. So I see that she's sitting on the phone on mute.
I did hang up because she said, Brittany, is your sister with you right now? Like, I'm getting that your sister is in another state and she's sitting in a car. Oh my gosh, Nick. When she said that, I got chills and I hung my phone up and I just started crying and praying. And Miranda's like, Mom, like, please just, she's like, this is wild. I'm freaked out too, but this lady knows all kinds of stuff. Like, she knows what she's talking about. You got to be open to it. And I'm like, I'm open now. How could I not be?
Carolyn had said something about it's like somebody on the other line. Like, I feel like somebody's listening. Is it like your sister or something? Well, my sister hung up on the third line, and I was like, no, like I tried to play it off. Like, I lied to Carolyn, and she called BS. She was like, your sister's on the, I mean, that's when I knew at that moment she was the real deal, and it scared us, scared my sister and I.
And I say, Brittany, wait, is your sister listening in on the reading right now on mute? And she goes, no, ma'am. I assure you it's just us. And then Teresa, who's now standing in real time in front of me, she crosses her arms like a mother pose, and she's looking at me and she's like telling me, like, you know, kids, right? Like, she's lying to you, right? And I'm like, okay. So I said it again. I said, Brittany, well, I'm seeing that your sister is on the phone on mute and she's listening in. And your mom's kind of confirming that for me. I was like, but, you know, so if she's listening in right now, just have her take really good notes, you know, as we go over these details, because your mom's telling me that she's going to be the one who has to go out and actually find where she is after I provide the location to you from her. Okay. So just tell her to please take good notes. Cause it's like, I knew I was being lied to, but they were like hanging on to that lie so hard. They were like, oh no, you're like, no, like we're not. It's so funny. It's like little kids when they lie. So Teresa's on the phone and she's having a disagreement with the man that's living with her. And I get what he's doing for a living. I also get what they want to do. What Teresa and him want to do for a retirement plan. I get that they want to have like a food truck. Okay. That's their retirement plans. They want to have a food truck. I get random information that doesn't pertain to her missing persons case. It's just to establish the characters within her life and to give me a fuller story, okay, of what's going on. I see his hobbies, which are very unique to him, which could get him in trouble if I say them here. So I won't say them, but they were so unique that we'll just keep that close to the vest for now. But these were confirmed later to me that these are his hobbies. Okay. She hangs. So she's on the phone with this person. She's like really upset, you know, and she shows me the person that she's referring to. Are you on this trip, you know, on this work trip, or are you fucking this lady or whatever? So I know where this woman lives. I know who she is. I don't know her name. Sometimes I'm not great with names. Sometimes they come and they're perfect and he did it, you know, and this is his name, or this, you know, I'll get names very, very clearly. And other times I won't get names at all, but I'll get everything they do in their life down to their age and the color of their damn underwear, but I will not get their damn name. Okay. So this woman in particular had no clue what her name was, but I knew everything else about her. Anyways, so I have these two other characters that I've got red flags on that I'm interested in. Okay. I'm now shown that she hangs up the phone. I'm now shown that she's texting with somebody, and the person that she's texting with, I know who he is. So in relationship to her, I'm shown this person is, I mean, can I say it? I don't even know if I can say it. I don't know if I'm safe to say people's names or who they are. So she hangs up the phone with the person that she was living with. Okay. And she picks up the phone and there's a text on her phone. It's somebody that is extremely close with her, okay? Like somebody that's known her entire life, okay? And I know who that person is because she tells me who he is, okay? On the text, I zone into the text, I hone into it, and I kind of zoom into it in my head. And it says, I need you to bring ingredients. I'm like, what ingredients? She starts shuffling around looking for ingredients. I didn't know what the heck. I was like, what is she doing? So I'm watching her shuffle around a little bit, and she's like, ugh. And she goes out her side door now, and she goes, there's a carport or an overhang that's, it's kind of like, yeah, I guess it's called a carport. And there's like kind of not junk, but just stuff like how garages look, like you just have stuff in there like stored. So she's got stored stuff to the back of it. And I keep getting the knowing that she's looking for a bucket and a gas can, right? And I'm like, why is she looking for a bucket or a gas can? Well, anyway, when she goes out that door, my vision of her prior was in color. And it was like I was a fly on the wall in there and I could see everything that she was doing. Now it's like I get tunneled up. I get sucked up into this camera that's in the corner, like above the door. It's in the corner and I can see it. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm in a surveillance camera, And so now I'm seeing her like messing around with stuff in her garage, looking for these, for the bucket and for the gas can, for ingredients. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what? So I'm a little confused here. Okay. And she's like, she can't find this stuff. And she seems a little bit annoyed, but not like upset. She wasn't mad or anything. She was kind of like, ugh, And then she leaves and I see that the camera catches her leave. And I'm like, oh, that's good. So I'm telling Brittany, hey, there's a camera on her house. It should be at the side door. You should be able to see her in the camera before she went missing. And you should be able to, that might give you a clue onto what happened, right? And she's like, I go, does she have a camera? She's like, I don't know. I'd have to ask my sister. So pretty much everything I was asking her, she didn't know. She had to ask her sister. And I'm like, oh boy. Okay. So everything's good. So I see her walk away from her house. Okay. She walks away and she's on foot and she goes like, kind of west from her house. Anyway, she starts walking and I see this road and it's a prominent road and there's a 2 on it. I didn't know if it was a 22 or a 2, but there's a 2 or a 22 and I was pretty confident it was just 1 2. So I said, she's heading to a road that's either like a highway 22 or a highway 2. There should be a bridge that comes off of that road if you keep walking. And then there should be a gas station. Okay. She's heading to the gas station and I keep getting that she needs Sudafed and da-da-da. And then it clicked in my head. Oh, ingredients. What do people use Sudafed for and all this other weird stuff? Meth. So she's walking and I see a woman join her while she's walking. Okay. And the woman, all I can see is the woman from behind. Okay. And the woman fits the description of the woman. She was like, are you, the one that she was asking her roommate if he was having sex with her, fits the description that I'd seen earlier. So it looks like the same woman catches up with her and they're walking together. Then I have a knowing that somebody on the outside said that they saw them together. So I say that to Brittany, they were seen together, right? I don't know if that's true or if it's hearsay. So I can tell when I'm not sure if it's really true or if it's hearsay. Like I'll have a question in my mind about it. I continue to the gas station. I'm at the gas station and I see her in my head. Okay. I see her at the gas station. She's with a guy that has a vehicle. And I get that there's a camera there. Okay. And so she should have been, I get the knowing, hey, have them check the camera. She shows me police checking the camera there. So I know that like at some point they're going to check the camera. at this gas station. I'm asking, what gas station is it? What gas station? Well, there's 2 gas stations apparently. So there's a gas station there, and then there's also a gas station called Circle K that I got in my head. I see Circle K, camera, you go check it, da da da. Then I'm taken, they bounce. Okay, so I'm at a different point in time. And I am now, I guess what I would say is I'm now inside of Teresa. Like I'm seeing through her eyes. Okay. So I'm like seeing from her vantage point, and I'm in the back of a vehicle and I'm laying down, which doesn't make me feel very good. It gives me pause. I'm nervous. I'm asking the question, are you alive? Or are we not alive at this point? You know, I did not get a definitive on whether she was alive or not. I didn't get that answer, so I don't assume. Okay. So I get this vantage point. I look at the guy driving, and he has like ash blonde hair. He's wearing these aviator sunglasses. And I see that he's got a little bit of scruff, and I can just see the way that he looks. I can see him kind of like if I was laying down and my head was towards the back passenger seat, and I was looking at the front driver. And I see, you know, it was weird. He looked like kind of a little bit like Jeffrey Dahmer. I got the knowing that he drives big rig trucks for a living. And then I was shown that he has a blue and white pickup truck that's a Ford, and it's an old Ford. And then I was shown her going to this property that was like, I was told that it was 30 miles west of her home. So directly west. And I was told that, you know, she was going over there, and now she's like alive, right? She's like laying in the back. It's weird. It kind of jumps around. But so I end up at this property, right? And that property is where the guy who was texting her before, like that's where he lives. He has a trailer there, and he's known her whole life and everything. He's the one who asked for the ingredients, and he's the one who's really close to her. Like they've known each other for their whole lives. And so he asks for the ingredients or whatever like that. And she shows up there, and he's got a trailer, and I know where he lives. I know from where her house is, he lives 30 miles north, or excuse me, I keep saying north, 30 miles west. Okay. And he lives on the property of another man who owns that property. So that man, I get, is the one who makes the meth. So he is the meth dealer and the meth maker or whatever. So then she's in his house, and I get her on her knees, like not doing anything. Like, I know that sounds bad, but like not doing anything like bad, just like she was in a compromised position. I describe the man who owns the house, who owns the property. And I describe what clothes he wears. I describe the way he looks. I jump now. It's like I bounce again. And I can see her in her house, and I'm on the floor as her again. I'm seeing through her vantage point, and I'm on the floor. And I can see this golden color to the floor. And I'm describing the space. Okay, so I have a description of the space. I see somebody take her arm and shoot her up on her right arm. But then tells me I'm right-handed. So if she had done it herself, then it would have been with her right hand, which she already told me and established that like she couldn't do that. I'm also shown that there are a bunch of cameras around, like internally, and then also 2 cameras like externally. And I was like, that's so weird. Like to have all these cameras, like why are all these cameras around, like watching you? And she lets me know who set up the cameras, that she didn't. Then I'm shown that the cameras have been pointed up. She said her words were they were turned up. Okay. So the cameras were turned up, and she said I couldn't have turned them up. I don't think that she could reach them or something. So somebody had turned the cameras up. Then she tells me, okay, so my daughter who's listening in on mute, like she needs to take really good notes, right? because I'm about to tell her where I am, and then she's going to have to go find me. Okay. And so she tells me, she tells me what door of her house to stand at. And then she shows me a compass. She tells me the exact direction, compass wise, to walk from her house, right? And she tells me south, so to head south from the door until she hit the wood line. So I guess there's a prominent wood line behind her house, is what I was being shown. So if she said, you're gonna have to go out on foot, go south, like start at this door, go south until you hit the wood line. And right when you hit the wood line, I want you to go west. It's like almost like bring a compass, and like go west right there. And then you're going to walk for a little ways and you're going to hit a prominent log. It's not like a normal, like there's debris and stuff in the woods or whatever, but it was a prominent log, like a big log that they would actually run into if they started at that point and then walked west, they'd run into a log that's laying on the ground. And when you come to that log, you are going to become physically ill. Like you're going to feel dizzy. You're going to feel nauseous because you're going to feel me. You're going to feel sick. Okay. And then there's going to be like some land right there that has like debris, like leaves and stuff like that. And then there's a river, like a creek or a river right there. And she said, that's where I am.
Yeah. She gave us directions. She gave us not only directions, but like landmarks, I guess you could say. And then from there, she told us what direction to go in. Like, you know, like southwest or southeast, directions. And as this is all happening, I'm taking notes in my notebook, and I mean detailed as much as I can. Even when she was in like open thought in her mind, I took those down as well.
She told Carolyn there was going to be woods, and they would find me near the water. So, and she also gave her like compass directions, south, southwest. She gave several numbers, some letters, some of that stuff I still haven't put together and figured out yet. And then there was a log, like a old tree that had fell. It was huge. I forget how Carolyn worded it, but she was like, there's going to be this big log and she's not going to be far from there. So that's what really stood out to me that Monday morning.
In summation, during the reading, Carolyn had seen that Theresa Jones was murdered by some people engaged in drug-related activity, and was then placed in water somewhere to the southwest of her home. Carolyn saw additional details related to the identities of those involved, but because of the nature of the source of this information, I thought it best to keep things vague. The morning after the psychic reading was Monday, February the 6th, and Ashley wasted no time in going out and searching for her mother along with a man named Mark, who was the husband of her best friend. The two were intent on following Carolyn's tip to head in a southwesterly direction to see if they could find the large log. Once there, Carolyn said that Ashley would feel sick, and just beyond the log, she would find her mother in the water.
When we found her that Monday morning when we were going through the woods from Mom's directions through Carolyn, I got to that log. And I got sick. Really sick. It's like my mom stopped me at that log. And it's just like when I seen it, I was just shocked. Like I just envisioned our conversation that night in the Tahoe, and she was talking about this big, large log, and there it was. And I immediately just fell to my knees and cried and got sick. So the log was like right here. If I would have went left to the log, I would have seen my mother first. I would have been the first person to see her. I feel like my mama stopped me at that log for protection because my best friend's husband was to the right and we were following him. And so we keep going, I stayed to the right and we came to her jacket. I found my mom's jacket. And when I seen that, it's like the thought of her being dead left. I don't know why, but it did. Like I was excited that we found her jacket. Okay, I finally seen something of my mom's and I know this is hers because we just took a picture together and she had this same jacket on. I started to grab it and then it was like, no, don't touch nothing. So I was like, okay, everybody just stop. I'm calling the police. And I did. And I told them, I was like, look, I found my mother's jacket, Theresa Jones. She's been missing since February 2nd. I need someone out here, please. Now, can you bring the dog back? She's got to be here somewhere. And the lady was like, okay, well, can y'all just get out of the woods? We're sending somebody out there now. And a part of me was like, I told her, yeah. And a part of me was like, yeah. But then another part of me was like, I needed to keep following Mark. So that's what I did. And as I'm going around, so this was right, but now we're going back to the left. As I'm going around, Mark turns around, and as he's turning around, I'm kind of like glancing, and it looked to be like you would think a stuffed animal. And he was like, come on, let's get out of here. I didn't really let anything register at that time because I didn't want anything to be true. And I didn't want to panic. So I was like, let me get out of these woods. As soon as I see the dirt road, I'll ask him. So as soon as we got to the wood line, to the dirt road, I was like, hey, Mark, was that my mom? And he said, yeah, baby, it was. And I called Carolyn right then before the cops even got there, and I told her. And she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I'm sorry that I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I didn't believe in anything you said.
I get a phone call from another number that I don't know, that I don't have in my phone, and I answer it. And there's a woman on the other line, and she identifies herself. She says, Miss Carolyn? And I said, yes. And she goes, my name is Ashley. She said, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to call you and apologize for lying to you. And I'm like, oh, what? And she says, I'm Brittany's sister. I'm Teresa's daughter. And I was on the phone last night on mute when you were reading for my sister, Brittany. And she said, you were right. She goes, it really freaked me out when you saw me. And she goes, I just wanted to apologize for lying about that. She goes, I was afraid of like mediums. And so I was afraid of people like you, and she goes, I didn't want you to know I was there. Like I was scared and of what could happen if I spoke to somebody with you or something, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, honey, don't worry about it. And she goes, I just wanted to call and let you know that we found Mama exactly where you said she would be.
Ashley had found her mother, with the help of family friends and also the assistance of Carolyn Clapper. It took them less than an hour. The Union Parish Sheriff's Office had been unaware of everything that was happening, that Ashley had essentially begun her own investigation and was working tirelessly to find her mother. Their investigation was still in limbo, but let's return to their perspective. On February 6, 2023, at approximately 1:02 p.m., the Union Parish Sheriff's Office received a call from Ashley telling them that Theresa Jones had been discovered deceased in a wooded area near her residence. A deputy named Dunn was the first to respond, and he drove to Teresa's home. Upon arrival, he saw Ashley walking out of the woods toward his squad car, crying hysterically. Shortly afterwards, he met Mark, who stated that he believed they discovered Teresa, and also another item of clothing in the woods. Mark then escorted Deputy Dunn out to the location of the body. The deputy notes in his report that Teresa was floating in Edmonds Creek, which had overflowed into several ponds in the area. Afterwards, the Criminal Investigations Department was alerted and dispatched to their location to take over. Once detectives arrived on scene, Mark took them to the proper location so they could begin processing the area. It is noted in their report that they observed no disturbance on the ground that would be indicative of any type of physical altercation. They also saw no evidence that indicated Teresa had been dragged to the area. Teresa was floating in the creek in a face-down position. According to detectives, it was roughly 300 to 400 yards from the residence to the creek. The area in between was thick with brush and undergrowth. By my own calculation, Teresa was found just southwest of her house and a little over 250 yards from the home itself. The raw coordinates to the body's location provided in the UPSO report actually point to a location in China, right around Tibet. This is obviously incorrect. It appeared that they were perhaps just missing a hyphen on the second number, but even when I add that, it points to a location near Cadeville, Louisiana, roughly 25 miles away from where Teresa was actually found. So I don't know what happened there, but they did not properly record where Teresa's body was found. But still, using information given by Ashley, I can be reasonably accurate with the location, and it's clear that Teresa's house was not far away. While detectives were taking measurements, it was noticed that Teresa was missing all the clothing on the lower half of her body. The report speculates that the current from the creek may have removed them, but as we now understand it, this creek really didn't have any current at all. Teresa's pants and underwear were never located. Nearby, they saw Teresa's jacket, which had been discovered earlier by Mark and Ashley. The exact coordinates for the jacket given in the report were also incorrect, but we know it was very close by. At this point, the Union Parish coroner, Renee Smith, was called in to access the body, which was pulled to the shore so that a more thorough examination could be conducted. Once on the shore, it was noted that Teresa did not have any scrapes or bruises that would normally be consistent with a body being in water that had a current. They also noted no injuries that would be indicative of foul play. Some livor mortis was noted in the report, which is pooling of the blood after circulation ceases. It appears as bruising on the skin. Upon reviewing the photographs of this incident, the livor mortis was contained entirely to the shins and the tops of the feet. The report notes that there were multiple experienced investigators present, and none of them felt that there were any indications of foul play. Still, the decision was made to send the body in for an autopsy. Teresa's body was loaded onto the back of an all-terrain ATV and removed from the area. The jacket was also collected and processed as potential evidence. While Teresa's body was being sent to Little Rock, Arkansas for autopsy, Captain Brian decided to speak with his wife, Shannon, once more and ask how sure she was that it was Teresa that she saw at Circle K after the disappearance. According to his report, Shannon looked at a photograph of Theresa Jones once again and stated that it was either Teresa at the Circle K or it was her identical twin. Captain Brian writes that he believes his wife did see Teresa at the Circle K, which would mean that she was still alive when she was reported missing and somehow managed to get to the West Monroe area. Meanwhile, when the autopsy was finished and the report was being finalized, Teresa's body was sent back to a local funeral home so the burial process could begin.
Okay, so the funeral home actually contacted me and said that Mom would need a sweater to cover her arms and like something maybe like a scarf, or if we had something sentimental or special to cover her hands. So I went to the store, I bought her a cardigan, and I think we had a sash or something purple. That was her favorite color. So I brought it to the funeral home, and when I got there, I asked the lady, I was like, hey, can I see my mom before you dress her? And she said, yes, I'm actually glad that you want to do that. So then a man came in and she asked permission for me to do that. And he said, yes, I would just have to sign a piece of paper, consent. So I did that. And then they bring me to the back to where my mom is. She's on this metal table, undressed completely. And her body was just in not good condition. Like, I never expected to see marks and bruises and things like that. I said, "Can I take pictures?" And the man that was in there with us, he said, "Let me go find out for sure, and you'll probably have to sign another piece of paper." So as soon as he left, the lady was like, take them now. She was like, "I'm so glad that you are alarmed by this. Something isn't right." And she told me that she came back dirty. Like, they didn't even clean her body in Little Rock. So, and then she was like, "Here he comes." So I quit taking pictures, and he came in with a piece of paper for me to sign consent to take the pictures once again. And I was like, okay, sign the paper. And then I started taking more detailed pictures of Mom's body. And then, I left or whatever. I'm so glad that lady was, she wanted me to want to ask. She couldn't voluntarily tell me, "Hey, you really need to do this." So then later on, this was February the 9th. So later on, either I called Carolyn, she called me, I don't remember exactly. And we're just talking. I think she was giving me a reading, or maybe we hadn't quite went into the reading yet. And she was just like, "Oh my God, Ashley, did you take photos of your mom?" And I said, "Damn right I did."
So her mom came through again, and she was basically showing me like her body back at the crime scene, like back where she's located at the scene. And I saw Ashley. So I know this is a little confusing, but the way that it came through me was this. Her mom showed me the crime scene again and her body was, and she showed me her body laying on the ground by the river. Okay. And then I see Ashley, and she's standing there, and she has her phone up, right? And she's holding her phone, and I'm now seeing through Ash's eyes, and I can see that she's holding an iPhone. So I asked Ashley, "Do you have an iPhone?" And she says, "Yes, I do." And I go, "Did you take pictures of your mom?" And she says, "You're damn right I did." I was like, "Girl." And I said, "I'm going to need those." And I had no idea why I even said that, okay, until later. So I'm looking at her phone in her hands through her perspective. And every time she clicks to take a photograph, I see the still in front of me, and it's her mom's body.
So I pulled the photos up on my phone as she went in a reading. And she was telling me different parts of her body. She had mentioned her wrist. And so then I go to the photo of her wrist, and I'm looking at her wrist. I'm confirming. There were, I can't remember right now specifically, but everything she said, I went to that photograph and confirmed it.
Basically, the photographs that I was shown and the marks on her body align. And so she confirmed every one of them as I walked her through them. I was then told by her mom that there was no rape kit done, and there was no fingernail scrapings done. Then Jordan White came through the reading, and I'm like, "Hey," like, I hadn't seen him in a while. He's a young man that I located in the river in Janesville, Wisconsin. I think it was like 6 years prior to that. So I hadn't seen him in a little bit. So Jordan came through. He tied a rope between his waist and her mom's, and that signifies a parallel to me. It's just something that it's like something that Spirit and I have. So it signifies a parallel between his case and hers. Then he took me straight to his autopsy report, and he showed me his autopsy report, which was ruled an accidental drowning / drug induced. They were thinking it could have been an OD as well. And he shows me that her mom's autopsy report would read the exact same thing, and that I would need to fight for her too.
When the autopsy report for Teresa finally came back, Captain Mike Bryan reported doing a thorough review of the results. The findings were made by a Dr. Frank Peretti, who ruled Teresa's cause of death as accidental drowning with a contributing factor of methamphetamine intoxication. The only evidence of injury was non-life-threatening abrasions and contusions on the upper and lower extremities. Captain Bryan agreed with the conclusions in the report. Beyond that, the toxicology report showed the presence of paroxetine and SSRI at a measure of 74 nanograms per milliliter of blood, which was noted to be within therapeutic limits. There was also the presence of amphetamine at a measure of 130 nanograms per milliliter and methamphetamine at 800 nanograms per milliliter. These amounts were considered to be in the higher range. Despite the determination made by many experienced investigators, Ashley was nowhere near convinced that her mother's death could be chalked up to a mere accident.
Prove it was an accident because there was no investigation done to prove otherwise. They said there was no struggle out there. The struggle was in the home, apparently. Did you not see the home? Why didn't, you find a woman naked in the woods. All she had on was a top, no undergarments. From here down, naked. You did no fingernail scraping. You did no rape kit. There are very questionable bruises on her body, and there was nothing done. Anyway, I reached out to the coroner's office in Little Rock, Arkansas, where her body was brought to. And I spoke with a nurse there, and she said unless it is ordered and it comes with the body, then they do not perform anything. And there was nothing ordered. I feel like fingernail scraping for sure, a rape kit, and also a sample of the water that was found in my mother's lungs compared to the water that she was found in. And I was told by the coroner of Union Parish, why would we do that? Why would you not do that? Why would you not? Like, I spent countless hours and doing my own research, my own footwork. I have more evidence than they have. The coroner actually, when she got there, told me, she said, this body hasn't been there too many more than 24 hours. I believe, I don't know when she died, but I believe this. I didn't go out there that Saturday or that Saturday night, and that was someone's way of putting her body there.
Afterwards, and based on rumors of possible domestic disturbances between Robert and Teresa, as well as the rumored affair, Captain Bryan obtained a search warrant for the hard drive to the home security system located at Teresa and Robert's house. Once this was obtained, investigators reviewed all available footage around the time that Teresa went missing. Teresa's home had cameras on both the interior and exterior of the house, meaning there should have been a reasonable amount of footage. During their search of the surveillance footage, the detectives made notes about what they were seeing. On footage dated for February the 1st at 12:54 a.m., they report seeing Teresa walking outside, getting into a vehicle, and then exiting 5 minutes later, then standing near an open door and re-entering the vehicle again. Later, they state that Teresa can be seen outside, and it looked like she was attempting to pick things up off the ground that were not there, or wipe things off that didn't need to be. At one point, they write that Teresa appeared to be talking to herself like she was having some type of psychotic episode. This type of behavior continues for some time. Teresa's daughter Ashley has seen the security footage, but her interpretation of it differs greatly from the detectives.
I watched that footage, and it looked to me like she was cleaning up. She was under her carport cleaning up. I seen all the footage. And I also asked that footage be, taken. Like, can you take this and let me see what else is on here? Because I was only allowed to watch so much because the boyfriend was in control of it the whole time that me and my best friend were there. Like, it showed on there, when it's red, it means a lot of movement. And he was skipping through a lot of the red. And I'm like, well, I just want to watch it. Oh, it's going to take a long time. I got all day. He didn't want to just sit there and let it play and watch it. But yes, there was, my mother was on there, and it looked like she was cleaning, picking stuff up from under the carport. There was also a camera pointed towards his wine room. He made homemade wine, and it's like the door. Well, actually, one time it showed her going into the wine room, and then she came out. And then the last footage that I saw was the wine room door open, but I couldn't see who opened it. And it looked like a towel was just thrown in there, and then the door was closed back. But it didn't show my mom. It didn't show anyone. But that door opened, a towel was thrown in, and it was closed. I've always been like, what was that? Who was that? Was that my mom? Why couldn't I see the rest of the camera footage?
Towards the end of the day on February the 1st, the detectives report seeing Teresa enter the wine room inside the house and start throwing things around prior to exiting around 10:30 p.m. At this point, Teresa was wearing a blue and white polka dot robe. Detectives note that this robe was later found in the bathroom shower and it was wet to the touch. About 4 minutes after Teresa left the wine room, the door to the wine room apparently opened and closed several times, despite nobody being seen on camera and nobody entering the room. A couple minutes later at 10:36 p.m., the wine room door opens again all on its own. The light in the room is turned on and then off again, and then it stops. Again, nobody was seen on camera during this time. According to the report, the only thing missing from the wine room was a bottle of wine from Israel that Robert and Teresa were saving for when they got married. It is also noted that the time on the security cameras could be off by as much as an hour. You might be wondering why I don't actually have any of this security footage to show you. Well, I don't know that the UPSO has this footage anymore. We basically just have a single still of the footage that was released by them back when this all happened. In the UPSO report, they stated that they outsourced the hard drive at one point, but the person it was given to could not get the surveillance video to download off the drive. It then states that the hard drive is back in the possession of UPSO, and more attempts will be made to download the video before giving it back to Robert. Later, they say that after multiple failed attempts at copying this footage, they eventually went out and bought a camcorder for the purpose of literally filming their computer screen as it played the footage directly from the hard drive. It says that this footage was put on thumb drives and later attached to the case file. So in the end, they make it sound like that they have it somewhere. I requested this footage twice. It took a long while to get anything out of the sheriff. Initially, I requested everything they had on the case, and they only sent me the written report. Then I said, "Can you give me the photographs that I asked for?" And so they gave them to me. And then I said, "Okay, now can I get the video I asked for?" And they went completely quiet on me. I haven't heard from them since. So the whole process actually took over a year to accomplish, and it is my belief that they no longer have the security footage. I would bet that they either gave it back to Robert or lost it at some point, which is really unfortunate because I do want to see what was on all of these cameras. I mean, we get no description of anything that may have been on those tapes for February 2nd, and we get no context as to how the house became so messed up. It's not mentioned if the house was already a wreck in the security footage, or if Teresa was on video doing it. That seems like an important point to include. It's rare enough that people have both interior and exterior cameras in their house, and here, when that is the case, it tells us virtually nothing, mainly because we don't actually have the videos. And one last thing, because I just want to get ahead of the comments on this one. Yes, I realize that the detective's description of what they saw in the security footage kind of makes it sound like the house is haunted or something, with doors opening and closing and the lights turning on and off. But keep in mind that we don't have this footage on hand. We don't know what angle that interior camera is at or how much of the general area it actually captures. I did talk to Ashley about this portion of the security footage. She has seen it, and she said it basically plays out exactly as the detectives described. The door opened and closed, lights went on and off, and you can't see who's doing it or how. And of course, nobody is seen entering or exiting either. I asked Ashley if there was another entrance to the wine room, so that someone could possibly enter it without being seen on camera. Ashley told me that there was only one entrance to the room, and it's the one that's covered by the camera. So, I don't know what's happening with this. It does feel rather odd, but it is much more likely in my mind that something must be happening off camera that we can't see. However, I do recognize the strangeness of it all. Let's move on, as we're almost finished with the UPSO investigation. Detectives conducted a follow-up interview with Robert about the days prior to Teresa's disappearance. Nothing too substantial was learned except that a wellness check was conducted on Teresa on Tuesday, January the 31st, 2023. According to Robert, after deputies left the residence, Teresa called and yelled at him. He said that Teresa had never done that kind of thing before. Captain Brian also prepared a search warrant for the purposes of requesting GPS coordinates of Robert's phone, as he wanted to make sure that Robert was actually working in Lake Charles during the days leading up to the disappearance. Once the warrant was obtained, it was sent off to Verizon, who refused to comply with the request. After that, the captain contacted Robert's employer to ask if he had any knowledge of Robert's whereabouts during the time period in question. The employer stated that to the best of his knowledge, Robert was in Lake Charles when he said he was, and left early one day for the purpose of going back home to check on Teresa due to a strange phone call he received from her. This was consistent with what investigators had learned about the timeline of events. Captain Brian also conducted an interview with Teresa's neighbor, Jeannie, since there was a rumor of her having an affair with Robert. According to the report, Jeannie was cooperative during the interview and told him that she had not noticed any behavior or heard Teresa say anything that would have led her to believe that she would just walk off somewhere. Jeannie admitted that she battled addiction when she was younger and that she spoke with Teresa a few days before she went missing. According to her, Teresa wanted the two of them to go and buy some meth together. Jeannie advised against this idea and suggested that Teresa just drink some wine and go to bed. Over the next several days, Jeannie said that Teresa would call or come by, asking her to go buy drugs with her. On the day that Teresa disappeared, Jeannie said that Teresa was hallucinating that she had glass in her mouth. She said that this was the last contact she had with Teresa before the disappearance. Beyond that, Jeannie told the captain that Teresa was doing lots of things that her family did not know about, like the two of them would go to Walmart and sometimes Teresa would steal things. She said that the two of them would sometimes go to Corey's house. This is Teresa's brother, and she claimed that this is where Teresa was getting her meth. Jeannie added that when Teresa went missing, she thought that she had just gone off to get high at Corey's house. Captain Brian asked Jeannie if she was aware of any domestic disputes between Robert and Teresa, and she responded that she had never heard of anything like that, and that Teresa often bragged about how good Robert was to her. At this point in the investigation, they looked into whether or not there was enough evidence to charge Teresa's brother, Corey, with the crime. But in the end, all they had was the word of Jeannie and no way of actually proving that Teresa bought drugs from a particular person. Because of that, no charges were ever filed, and Theresa Jones' case was closed as a death by accidental drowning. So that was the entirety of the UPSO investigation into Theresa Jones' death in 2023. The fact that the family contacted Carolyn Clapper is never mentioned in their reports. And this is despite the fact that the UPSO detectives were specifically told by the family that Carolyn helped lead them to Teresa's body, and they were encouraged to reach out to her. Carolyn even tried calling them at one point, but they refused to speak with her. To this day, UPSO has had no contact with Carolyn. When you read through their case file, it's clear that they ran into a dead end, and then suddenly, Teresa is just found at a random point in the woods, with no explanation as to how or why Ashley and Mark were out there in the first place. And to some extent, I get it. They're cops who probably don't believe in psychics. I can understand that. And psychic readings are generally not admissible in court as direct evidence. I'm just surprised that they seem to avoid even writing about it. These reports exist to provide some narrative context for how things played out in the investigation, and by omitting this part, it leaves a bit of a gap for anyone reading this thing who doesn't already know what happened. So the case was closed, and the family was very unhappy with this outcome. Carolyn had seen that Teresa was murdered and that this was not an accident. Ashley, who was a nurse, had problems with the details she was seeing in the autopsy. She had problems with the entire investigation, really, but what could she do? This case didn't get national attention until over a year later, in May of 2024, when a journalist named Riley Kramer at KNOE filmed a piece for the news. In it, Ashley was interviewed, as was Carolyn. The psychic element of the case was broadcast for everyone to see, and the sheriff of Union Parish refused to be interviewed on camera about the case. It is very rare to see a publicized case in the modern era which was seemingly solved with the help of a psychic. And while I am skeptical of psychic powers, there are some things here that I am not sure how to explain. There are a lot of story details that Carolyn seemed to know that matched up with the witness testimony and evidence that was found during the UPSO investigation. Things that we know Teresa was doing, things that Ashley was going to do, and how this investigation would ultimately end. Carolyn apparently predicted details that would be found in the autopsy, down to the cause of death and how much water would be found in Teresa's lungs. This was confirmed to me by Ashley. And again, remember that Carolyn was called while all of this was ongoing. She did this reading before you could even think about getting the police report on this case. Teresa was still missing. This was still an open case. And she did this reading after being cold called late at night. Now, being as skeptical as I am, my focus was on Ashley. Is Ashley confirming all of the things that Carolyn saw during the reading? Yes, she is. I have gotten to know Ashley pretty well over the course of this investigation. It's been a long time. I trust and believe that Ashley is being truthful in what she says, and she really has no reason not to be. She has no reason to shill for Carolyn. They didn't know each other, and Ashley didn't care much for psychics to begin with. There's no doubt in my mind that this is what Ashley experienced. And Carolyn seemingly predicted a lot of these things before they even happened to Ashley. So that's why I'm saying that I'm not sure what to make about all this. Was it just dumb luck? Was something else going on here? In the end, it's less important to the overall case because Teresa was actually found. A result was achieved in all of this, and the fact that a medium seemed to know all these things that she couldn't possibly know is something that can be dealt with separately. Anyway, I became aware of this case upon the release of the KNOE news report, and I began working on it as much as I could. It took some time to gain the trust of people like Carolyn and Ashley, which makes sense because I'm a YouTuber who makes videos. I'd say the general reputation for a YouTuber is someone who is just trying to pump out a story and move on. I get that perspective, and I make it a goal of this channel to not do that. It's important for me to see that Ashley's goals for her mother's case become my goals as well. And Ashley is one of the strongest women I've ever met. I mean, the crap that she has had to go through is just insane. She has been fighting a battle to get her mother's case reopened, while the authorities seem to treat her like she was crazy for even thinking that was necessary. Well over a year into this investigation, I finally had all the records that I wanted, including the autopsy report. I had done interviews with Ashley and Carolyn. I had a much better grasp on this case, or at least enough of an understanding that I might be able to make a determination about what was happening here. There was already quite a few things that troubled me, but the stuff in the autopsy report really set off some red flags for me. The amount of water in Teresa's lungs was very low. It was also clear that she had not been in the water for very long, yet she had been missing for days. The lividity on her body was also a bit confusing based on her position in the water. I mean, what do we know about the timeline of the disappearance in this case? We know that on February 1st, there were two potential witnesses. One said that Teresa showed up outside her house carrying a gas can. The other said that she saw Teresa and another woman carrying gas cans down Highway 2. On February 2nd, Teresa is last seen on security footage around 1 a.m. Robert returns home on the evening of February 2nd and finds the house is a wreck and Teresa is missing. The next day, February 3rd, a tracking dog gets Teresa's scent and follows it towards the neighbor's house and a shipping container, and then out to Highway 2 where it dissipates. That same day, Teresa is apparently seen alive by Shannon Bryan at a Circle K in West Monroe. After that, we know nothing until Teresa's body is found in Edmonds Creek on February 6th by Ashley and Mark. According to the coroner, she had been there for possibly less than 24 hours. There is a lot going on here that just seems to scream some kind of foul play. But then comes a rather large problem. In the grand scheme of things, I am a nobody. I've never gone to medical school and I have no training in forensic investigations or anything like that. Whatever I know is basically self-taught because I do this kind of thing for a living now. But none of that matters much because no authority is going to listen to me, and my lack of having any formal education in these subjects often leaves doubts even in myself. I mean, the sheriff's report for this case does something I had never really seen, because when they are describing Teresa's body upon discovery, it is mentioned that the Union Parish Sheriff was present and the coroner was present. It lists their accomplishments and mentions that they have years of experience in death investigations and that they came to the determination that foul play seemed unlikely. Nothing to see here. And then you got me, random YouTube guy who thinks it all seems a bit fishy. If the ultimate goal here was to try and get Teresa's case looked at again, then I realized we really needed a more by-the-book approach. And as things would have it, I had a few thoughts on what the next step should be. Having this channel has been useful for a lot of reasons, but one in particular is that it has put me in contact with a lot of professional people. Detectives, coroners, forensic investigators, etc. Well, I had recently been in touch with a private forensics company because they had done a workup on a previous case I covered, and they wanted to show me their results. After looking at their work, I was very impressed and could see that they were good at what they do. This company is called Applied Forensic Solutions, and it is run by a fella named John Oliveira. Well, I sent John pretty much everything I had on Teresa's case. I didn't give him much context of the overall story or anything. I just wanted him to examine the evidence, the sheriff's report, the photographs, and the autopsy report, and let me know what he thought. I was fully prepared for the possibility that he could come to the same conclusions that the Union Parish Sheriff did. I just said that I would really appreciate it if you could help me on this. There's no money in it for you or anything. We're just going to be doing something good for the right reasons. And he agreed to take a look at it. So before we get into what the forensic report said, I'll just remind all of you that the working theory for the Union Parish Sheriff was essentially that Theresa Jones was having a manic episode. She was using meth and she somehow got into the water and drowned. They reported finding no indication of foul play, and Teresa was found face down in a creek with little to no current, and she had no clothing on the bottom half of her body. Okay. So now let's get into the findings of the forensics company, and I will also cover a working hypothesis they developed as to what may have happened here. There are a number of things that will be described here that I obviously will not show the public, stuff related to evidence on the body. Still, I will do my best to illustrate what is being described as necessary. A lot of stuff was discovered by AFS, and I won't be able to cover it all. We are just going to hit some of the most significant conclusions. In the initial overview, it is mentioned that the high concentration of meth discovered in the blood, in isolation, is insufficient to explain the death. It also notes that Teresa lacked the hallmark signs of chronic meth abuse, such as emaciation, dermatological damage, and severe hygienic neglect. So, if Teresa had relapsed, it would likely have been a very recent development. One of the big issues that I was curious about was the water found in the lungs, and the report goes into great detail about this. About 150 milliliters was recorded in the autopsy, which the report notes is significantly lower than is expected in fatal drownings, which is usually in the range of 500 to over 1,000 milliliters. Beyond that, the autopsy never mentions the discovery of debris, silt, algae, or plant matter in the airways or nasal passages, something you might expect to see when someone drowns in a natural body of water. Lastly, the report notes that the photographic evidence shows that Teresa's mouth was clearly closed when she was pulled from the water, with no visible foam, water, or debris escaping. This is unusual for a drowning scenario where someone might be gasping for air as they are panicking. Overall, the forensic report says that the evidence suggests that significant water aspiration did not occur and that the cause of death was either misdiagnosed or incompletely investigated. As it relates to lividity, which occurs when gravity causes the blood to settle once circulation stops, the report notes that there are certain inconsistencies. Teresa was found face down in the water. Because of this, you would expect to see bruise-like discoloration on the face, chest, stomach, etc. However, that was not the situation here. Instead, lividity was only found on the lower legs and feet. This would suggest that the body spent some time with the upper body in an elevated position. One other interesting observation in the report relates to the fleece jacket that Teresa was wearing. The upper portion of it, which remained above the waterline, was visibly clean. There was no obvious dirt, silt, or debris. This was in stark contrast with the rest of the jacket, which was brown with mud and debris. The report notes that in cases of active drowning, it is common for clothing to accumulate organic material due to movement or turbulence. Basically, if Teresa was drowning in the water, you would expect all of her clothing to get this dirty water on it. Instead, a large portion of the jacket above the waterline remained clean, which would almost seem to suggest that she was placed in the water very carefully. But the jacket can tell us even more than that. The photographs of Teresa's body show us that the fleece was partially inflated. There is an air pocket causing the fleece to rise above the waterline. This is further evidence supporting an argument that Teresa was not moving when she entered the water, because in order to trap air in her fleece like that, she would have had to enter the water at an angle. AFS did testing to try and mimic an air pocket like this, and based on this evidence, the most likely mode of entry seems to be one where she is placed in the water from a boat. The forensic report says that this finding further supports the theory of immobility and a lack of a current in the water or a physical struggle. Further, these contradict key assumptions commonly associated with accidental drowning, such as there is no evidence that the body sank, as would be expected from inhalation of water. There are no signs of a body tumbling, drifting, or repositioning due to aquatic current, and the lividity distribution does not match the full body orientation at recovery. Taken together, the report says that these observations strongly suggest that the body was placed in the water after death, likely in a partially submerged vertical or diagonal position where it remained undisturbed for a significant period. The forensic evidence does not support spontaneous drowning as a natural consequence of drug impairment or accidental submersion, but instead aligns more closely with post-mortem staging in a low-energy aquatic environment. Additional findings in the report included a few contusions to the thighs of the body. The markings here are well defined and indicate a direct application of force. The size and positioning of the contusions seems to be indicative of an object like a pole or a bar impacting the thighs. The forensic report notes that these thigh injuries were not mentioned in the autopsy report, which is a significant omission given their potential forensic relevance. Some final details I will note are scrapes and abrasions that are seen along the shins and the tops of the feet, injury patterns that strongly suggest dragging. Based on the analysis done with the evidence gathered in this case, AFS created a hypothesis. Remember, this is essentially an educated guess on what could have happened. As none of us were there, we can't know for sure. All we have is the evidence left behind. That being said, AFS theorizes that Theresa Jones died or became incapacitated prior to submersion, then was dragged by the upper body causing scraping on her shins, and later was placed in an upright or standing position inside an object, possibly a freezer. At the time, her legs were bent at the knees and positioned downward. The body would be stored this way long enough for lividity to fix in the lower limbs. Later, the body would be removed, possibly redressed, and placed face down in the water to create a staged drowning scenario. There are a lot of additional details I could go into. Stuff related to the toxicology report and how certain drugs would be processed in our system over time. Other analyses in the report go over possible timeline manipulation, using cold as a forensic countermeasure. Essentially, freezing a body and then later staging it somewhere can create certain inconsistencies. But I think at this point, you all likely understand that we are possibly dealing with something a little more complex than an accidental drowning. Once we hit this point, we all discussed what the next steps in this process should be, with Ashley being the ultimate decision maker. Ashley was the one who had spent so much time advocating for her mother's case and being told that she was wrong, that she was overthinking it. But this analysis, done by an unbiased third party, really vindicated her. So, after discussions, the decision was made to see if Union Parish would be willing to review this new evidence and consider reopening the case. John Oliveira was really the only one who I thought could even attempt such a thing. In my experience, law enforcement is just more willing to listen to other members of law enforcement, or those who are adjacent to the profession. Well, John is well respected in what he does, and he knows how to speak their language. So he called the Union Parish Sheriff's Office and was able to speak to a detective there. He told them that he had learned some new information and done some analyses, and that he would like to present it to them. John offered to travel down to Louisiana and meet with the detectives at their headquarters, and they agreed to have the meeting. And I can't thank him enough for making this effort because he paid his own way and everything. It's a pretty significant time investment here. The meeting happened at the very end of October 2025, the day before Halloween, I believe. I can remember getting a call from Ashley that day. To be honest, I was not expecting much good to come from the meeting. I thought we might have to keep fighting on this one, but Ashley got on the phone and told me that the UPSO had called her and told her they were going to reopen and reinvestigate this case. They apologized to her as well and told her they were going to keep her informed going forward. It's really an outcome that I did not see coming, but it's a good outcome. UPSO did the right thing in the end, and they deserve some level of commendation for it. It's pretty uncommon that you see a law enforcement entity apologizing for its mistakes. So I don't want anyone watching this video to inundate them with any hate mail or comments. If anything, it should be a positive comment for doing the right thing in the end. Yes, it appears that they downright botched this case from the outset, but now they're trying to make it right. There is a new lead detective on the case, and from what I've heard, he seems eager to follow this thing through. So we want them to continue to do the right thing and to know that we, the public, are keeping a close watch. We don't want this thing to go cold and be forgotten. We want to see a conclusion to this at some point. I do also want to address a few things related to Carolyn's reading and what the viewer might perceive as some ambiguousness when it comes to the potential suspects in this case. This was an intentional decision because this is now an open case. If this was indeed a homicide, as it appears to be, I have no interest in tipping my hand or that of the authorities to any potential suspects. Carolyn's readings had a lot of detail in them, and much of it was not shared in this video. So when it comes to what Carolyn saw during her reading, names of these suspects were removed, and so was anything that might prove evidential in the future. It's a strange thing I've never really experienced before. But as a completely made-up example, if Carolyn saw a killer used a certain implement to commit a homicide, and she saw that they then kept that implement in their home afterwards, I figure the safest route would be to not present that in a video. Obviously, as a skeptical person, I don't quite know if that vision is real or legitimate or what, but it seems like it would be best to err on the side of caution. So the goal was to tell this story while also holding back some information that relates to suspects or evidence. I just want to make that clear. When it comes to the paranormal aspect of this case, the psychic aspect, I am at a bit of a loss. This channel is one that focuses on logical, rational thinking. We've covered numerous cases that claimed paranormal happenings which turned out to be completely bogus. Most every case I've ever covered can be adequately explained. And then there's this case. Obviously, I wasn't there when all this happened, which puts me at a bit of a disadvantage. I wasn't there sitting in the car with Ashley when this reading commenced. So everything I have is based on the word and knowledge of those who lived through this. And again, I do believe Ashley. I've gotten to know her quite well, and she was skeptical of psychics when it all began, but now she is a believer. There are so many details in this case that Carolyn saw during her reading with Ashley and Brittany that later came true. For example, Carolyn told Ashley to walk southwest of the mother's house and she would encounter a log. Then she would immediately get sick or physically ill, and her mother's body would be just beyond that log in the water. According to Ashley, it all happened exactly that way the next day when she went out there, down to the part where she got sick once she reached the log. There are few enough skeptical explanations that I can provide for this kind of thing. The one I imagine some people will proffer about this case would be that Ashley is working with Carolyn to present this story as a psychic paranormal event. But to be honest, that feels like such a stupid idea. The seriousness of this incident would tend to rule out collusion in my mind. This is Ashley and Brittany's mother we're talking about here. When Teresa was missing, they just wanted one thing, to find their mom. I've seen no evidence to indicate that Ashley was even aware of Carolyn's existence prior to this. And I know that Ashley's upbringing led her to avoid contact with psychic mediums. And in the grand scheme of things, the paranormal aspect of this case got very little coverage. It wasn't until May of 2024 that the psychic part of this case was even made public, and the sheriff, Dusty Gates, confirmed to the media that when Teresa was found, Ashley was saying that a psychic led them to the body. Hell, it took me a long time to convince Ashley to even talk to me about this case. She had no interest in pushing any psychic agenda here. She had no interest in putting her face on TV. She just wanted justice for her mother. So any theory or idea that Ashley and Carolyn coordinated on inventing some story, I just do not believe for 1 second. And if that's out of the way, that doesn't leave much. You could say that maybe Carolyn just got lucky. Maybe the details she gave in the reading weren't actually that detailed, except in Ashley's memory of them. Fraudulent psychics will often use a method called cold reading, where they will fish information out of you without you even realizing it. They'll say they see someone in your family whose name starts with an A or a T, and you'll go, "Oh, that's my Uncle Albert. How could you possibly know that?" They didn't know that. You just told them that. So it's fair to wonder if certain information was brought out of Ashley and Brittany. Again, I wasn't there, but I'm told that the way Carolyn works is generally a bit different. I guess she encourages you to not respond to what she's saying. She says what she sees, and you take notes. You don't tell her if she's getting it right or wrong. But again, I wasn't there to witness it. But such a method would largely rule out cold reading. Looking at the notes that Ashley and Brittany took during the reading, they are quite detailed, and there are a lot of things that are true there. Other things are unverifiable at the moment because we can't confirm what Teresa was doing while she was missing. The level of detail provided by Carolyn and attested to by Ashley and Brittany is quite shocking. I haven't seen anything quite like it. While looking at this case with the skeptical eye, perhaps the only thing that gives me a bit of pause is the fact that Ashley said she had a feeling that her mother was out there in the woods beyond her house. I asked Ashley if she felt she would have found her mother without Carolyn's help, and this was her response.
Yeah. I think I might have found, and I hate for it to come out like this, but I think I would have found her that day regardless, because I already had it in my mind that I was going there. Maybe not as easy with the direction that she had given. I'm a very determined person. And when I put my mind to something, I'm not going to stop until I feel complete with it. So I would have never stopped looking. And if I feel like I would have found her regardless.
So Ashley had this feeling or intuition of where to search right before listening in on the phone call where Carolyn gave the reading. Ashley already had it in her head that she was going to look in those woods the next day. But Carolyn gave her specific directions to follow when she eventually did go out there. I don't see how Ashley could have fed any of her own inclinations or suspicions to Carolyn because she never actually spoke to Carolyn. So it's unlikely that anything like that happened. Ashley was just listening in on a phone call and she stayed muted the whole time. Ashley didn't speak with Carolyn until right after she found her mother when she called to apologize for not believing in her. So whatever information Ashley had in her head prior to her mother's discovery, it could not have been extracted by cold reading if she never actually spoke with Carolyn on the phone. I did ask Brittany if Ashley had told her any of these suspicions she was having prior to talking with Carolyn that night, and Brittany confirmed that she did. This would be right before the phone call. But Brittany said that these suspicions were never mentioned to Carolyn during the phone call, not at any point. That creates a bit of a pickle for a skeptical person like myself. The way I see it, Carolyn's biggest psychic hit, if we want to call it that, was that she saw that Theresa Jones had been murdered. Remember that every authority involved in this case said it was an accidental drowning with related meth intoxication. All of the experience and knowledge of the sheriff's office, coroner's office, and medical examiner said that this was an accidental drowning. And then you have Carolyn on the other side of the country saying that she saw in her visions that it was a homicide. This case has remained closed with that original finding until just a couple months ago when we were finally able to get it re-examined and reopened as a potential homicide based on all the available evidence we have. So it appears that Carolyn was right, and that was a pretty big one to get right. And again, I understand that the skeptical point of view would be to say, well, maybe she just had a lucky guess. I agree with you. And that's why I'm actively looking into other cases Carolyn has been involved in to see if this kind of thing has been repeated. Because if it has, then that might mean that something very strange is happening here. And I'll keep everyone updated on what I find. In the end, I'm just grateful that we got this done for Ashley and her family. Obviously, it's not over by a long shot. In a way, it's just the beginning. But we got things going on the right track again. And while we all had our parts to play in this, nobody deserves more praise and support than Ashley. Ashley never gave up on this, even though her life has been beyond difficult since this happened. The only way John was able to produce the quality of forensic report that he did is because Ashley was doing her own investigation into her mother's death. Ashley's recordings, photos, and notes were all essential information, and pretty much all of it was stuff that was not in the official UPSO case file. It just blows me away even to this day when I see what she accomplished. She literally turned into Sherlock Holmes because it needed to be done. And again, I want to thank Ashley for allowing me to help with her mother's case. It can't be easy to trust someone you've never met. I'm glad we were able to get something accomplished here. I also want to heap praise on a John Oliveira at Applied Forensic Solutions. I don't think we could have gotten this outcome without him, and he generously donated his time and effort to the cause. If any viewers ever find themselves in a situation where they could use a private forensics company to assist with an ongoing case, maybe you're dealing with authorities who you don't trust to get the job done, then you couldn't do any better than AFS if you need a second opinion or you want a deeper investigation. I've been consistently impressed by all their work and dedication. They went above and beyond. You'll be seeing more of their work in future videos as well. And of course, I want to thank Carolyn Clapper for speaking with me and filming an interview. Above all, I want to thank her for taking that late night phone call on February 5th, 2023. If she hadn't decided to take this case, it's possible that things could have turned out in a very different fashion, whether you believe in her abilities or not. While the goal of this channel has always been to present missing persons cases through a logical and rational lens, I always thought that the most ideal situation would be to effect some positive change wherever I'm able. I think we were able to do that here, and I am eternally grateful for everyone who had a hand in making it possible, including all of you who support this channel. So thank you. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Well, it's really taken a toll on my family and I. It's been very tough. I've remained strong through all of this. I don't know how. It's by the grace of God. And it's not over. It's far from over. As a matter of fact, I guess you could say it's just the beginning, because I'm not going to stop until I find the answers. I'm not going to stop until there's justice for my mom. And I told the sheriff's department that. I told the detective that. And I mean it. She's my mom. I love her. It doesn't matter, say she did relapse. Say she was the worst person in the world. She wasn't. But just say that she was. She's my mom.